Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Time, Talent, Treasure Radio. I'm your host, Jared Sebesta of Tejas Financial Group, where we build purposeful retirement plans. At Tejas Financial Group, we believe retirement planning is so much more than just preparing financially. Our goal is to help retirees and pre-retirees steward their time, talent, and treasure. We have the tools and proven process to make sure your retirement plan delivers the greatest purpose, impact, and legacy. If you need help building a purposeful retirement plan specific for your life, give us a call. Our number is 320-222-4236. You can request a free meeting online at tachusfinancial.com. And if you're in the neighborhood, just stop by our office. We're located on 19th Avenue Southwest in Wilmer, building purposeful retirement plans. Well, thanks so much for tuning in today. We sure do appreciate that. Again, this show is dedicated to help you steward your time, your talent, and your treasure. So everything that we do on the show here fits into that framework and that lens. A couple of weeks ago, Ben Tejas was on the show, and he was talking about, wasn't there supposed to be a recession? You know, everybody was talking about the oncoming recession at the beginning of 2022, and things played out in a much different scenario. So he talked about why, and he gave some opinions as to why that happened. What was the driving forces behind that? And last week, Tim Mattern talked about how the mentality you have to have, even though there are lots of times many negative predictions out there, what mentality should you have? What should be your mindset today, whether all of those negative predictions come true or not? If you missed those shows, go back and listen to them. And if you haven't heard by now, we're on iTunes. You can follow Time, Talent, Treasure Radio on iTunes. Subscribe while you're there. If you miss us on the radio, this is a great place to find our show. We're also on YouTube. If you search Tejas Financial Group on YouTube, all of the replays are on there as well. So make sure you go and check that out. Well, Matt Hoekstra joins me on the show here today. We appreciate you having you on the show. And I kind of want to continue this conversation of, what should people do? How should they think? Matt, we have a brand new article on our website, Tejas Financial, talking about how inflation is actually down year over year. Actually, the increase was the smallest year over year for the first time in 2 years. And, like we said, that is a good thing, but let's kind of play into this conversation of mindset. How should people kind of think about or maybe analyze some of that data?
Well, you got to be a little careful when you say that inflation is down, because there's probably a fair amount of people that are going to be pretty bad to hear that, because when you start looking at what it actually takes for a family to wake up in the morning, or a retired couple just to get out of bed is, it seems exorbitantly higher than, what it was 5-10 years ago. So inflation is a very real thing, and it has had a pretty sizable impact on the way people view money and the way that they spend money. And so, I think the number one key takeaway is I get a chance to see both sides of the coin. We've had people come in that have said over the years, I've got X amount in retirement and I've got X amount in Social Security. I penciled it out. They're about the same, right? Or it looks like I should have a little bit more money coming in than what I'm spending. Well, they don't really factor into that inflation. And so it's like, well, it used to cost you $2,000 a month for your insurance and groceries and things like that. And now even without a mortgage, that number is significantly higher. Sure. So there's that set. And then there's the set of people that have planned for that have planned for inflation, that have planned for the markets not to be perfect, which, since 2018, we've seen some pretty significant moves in the market downward. And so, when you factor that in and you say, okay, I'm gonna bake in that percentage, which historically, I think at one point was around a little over 3%. Right. If I'm doing that, that allows me to see this stuff and get really angry that I'm paying or was paying $6 or $7 for a dozen eggs. Yeah. But it doesn't significantly throw off course what I'm trying to do. Yeah. And so it gives me the freedom to say, okay, I'm angry about that. I'm annoyed by that. But I still I've prepared over the years. I know that I have enough, even with that, to continue to live life the way that I want to, and maybe make a few small adjustments, but really not see that as something that is a huge deterrent. Crush, exactly.
I just had my mother and father-in-law up this last weekend, and they were telling a story how they went to kind of their local bigger city in southern Minnesota. they decided, and I hope they're not listening to the show, but they decided they want to go out and have a burger. So they went to Five Guys restaurant. Huge fan of Five Guys restaurant. And, my father-in-law was like, we used to go to Five Guys and it was like $18 and it was $35. For Five Guys, and that was with 2 drinks, and he was kind of hemming and hawing, and I just listened, and it was interesting just to kind of hear him kind of talk through that. And when he was done, I said, well, was the food good? He's like, yeah, it's spectacular. I'm like, did you have a good time with my mother-in-law? And he was like, yeah, it was great. And I'm like, well, whether it used to be $18 and now it's $35, which is double, it's big. I'm not suggesting it's not a significant increase. I mean, with all due respect to my in-law, that doesn't crush them. It's that's not a thing that they had to sacrifice part of their life, and their lifestyle went down because they had to pay $13 more for that. Talk about the generational, how people think, because again, we deal with people in that upper 50s, 60s, 70s mindset. You kind of see that mindset come into play a lot more with that particular generation, and I think it probably goes back to some of the things that they've seen in their life.
Yeah, I mean, the people that are 60, 70 years old grew up with parents that went through the Great Depression.
Right.
That has a significant impact on seeing, hey, we might not be able to eat, or we've got to stretch out what we have. We've got to, again, we've talked about this before, but rinse out our ketchup bottles to make sure that we get the last little bit in the bottom. And then you have some of the younger generations who have grown up with $1,000 cell phones and nice cars to drive and things like that, and they haven't seen what it's like to struggle. And I think, what I sit here and really just, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to this stuff, but I dream about having the perfect mix of those two things, right? To where we have this sense of urgency to plan and to save and to do the things that we need to do. But then when it comes time to move from that accumulation of wealth phase into the what's the point phase, what's the point of that accumulating wealth? And a lot of times it is to retire or to take that wealth and be super intentional with it. And instead, the last few years, people have become less intentional about it and have just been kind of had this hoarding mentality of, I've got to just throw it in the savings account and save. And, I get a chance to see how for a lot of people that equates to a ton of missed opportunity. And so, when we talked earlier, that inflation is one of those attacks on being really intentional with our wealth and what we're doing. And I think if there could be that perfect person, that perfect mentality with money, it's going to be finding that balance to say, I'm going to accumulate, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do everything I can to save and to live within my means and to do the things that I need to do. But when it comes time, I'm going to have a plan. I'm going to be intentional so that when I want to go and have a $35 meal with my wife, I don't have to feel guilty or bad or like it's significantly decreasing my quality of life. I mean, if you're in a position where that does, I mean, that's a different conversation. But I think, having a plan and saying, hey, we've planned for this. I would say inflation has been huge, but incomes have gone up, maybe not at the same pace. Markets have still increased over the years. So, a lot of people are maybe in a position that they never thought they would be either. And so there is that adjustment in retirement as well to say, whether it's farmland rent or pension or Social Security or, other incomes coming in. I hear from a lot of people, if you would have told us when we were in our 20s that this is where we were going to be, we would have laughed at you. I just exactly had that conversation about 15 minutes ago. And it was, so there is that aspect too. So I think we do need to take inflation seriously. We do need to plan for it, but we need to not let it completely wreck our lives and completely throw off what we're trying to do. I mean, I was talking to an older guy, not a client, not even really an acquaintance, but he was talking about how he was a single guy and he had to stop going out for coffee because coffee got too expensive. And, we kind of talked through that a little bit, and it was like, he was talking about some of the investments he had and his Social Security and things like that. And I'm like, well, you're 72. You've got a bunch of assets. You've got no beneficiaries. You've got no real plan for that money.
Yeah, strong monthly income. But you're going to let having coffee gone from $1.50 to $3 keep you from going out for coffee in the morning with your friends, and was really one of the only social things that he experienced. And so that, that's the mindset where it's like, I finally looked at him and I was like, you have wealth. You have somebody is going to spend that. Mm-hmm. If you don't, somebody's going to. Be intentional with it. Don't, the extra even $2 for a morning cup of coffee, even a day,
is not going to significantly decrease what you're trying to do. So, had he been able to see on paper, hey, even if I spend the extra $2 a day, I'm still accumulating wealth. I'm still growing that. Mm-hmm. And, now I need to just be as intentional as possible.
Absolutely. And what I keep hearing is that the plan is the key. Matt, thank you so much. Well, if you are listening and want to get that plan started and help your mindset so you don't let scarcity steal from your life in retirement, get that plan started today. We have 3 easy ways that you can do that. Number 1, you can give us a call at 320-222-4236. You can request a meeting online at tachusfinancial.com. If you live in West Central Minnesota and are in the neighborhood, stop by our office. We're located on 19th Avenue Southwest in Wilmer, building purposeful retirement plans. I'm Jared Sebesta, joining you on this episode of Time, Talent, Treasure Radio. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through an Avantax affiliated insurance agency.